Hey everybody, it's Jonathan here from The Land Method, and welcome to Crushing Land for this week. And we're going to take a little bit of time today, and we're going to talk about what to do with an uncooperative seller at different levels. There's been a lot of discussion going on in our Facebook group about that lately. If you're not a member of our Facebook group, I will say right now, something you want to join, you can just search for the groups for The Land Method. A lot of free content given away there, a lot of interaction, and a lot of where these things come from comes from that group, obviously because people are asking questions and we're discussing it and things like that. So what do you do with an uncooperative seller, particularly if you want to close the property? Sometimes you have an uncooperative seller, but you're looking at it and you're saying, well, I really am not interested in this property anyway. I've discovered some things, I'm going along and whatever it may be, and in that situation you're usually just moving away from it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But what we're talking about here is a seller or in a situation where you actually want to close it. They're either saying that they're not going to sell it to you, or they're ghosting you, or whatever it may be, and you want to move forward with it. So we're going to talk about a few different things that you can do with that. First and foremost, obviously you want to keep in contact with your sellers right from the beginning. That's a big problem that a lot of people have. And that is probably the biggest reason that sellers become uncooperative down the line. People get a contract back, they get excited, they start doing all of these things, they start marketing it, they start doing their research, they start and they're going down the line, and they're planning on double closing it or whatever, and they're having this time go by that may end up being months. And for whatever reason, they don't keep in contact with their sellers in that time frame. If you don't keep in contact with them, you can't expect them to just be hanging around as you're going along. That's not going to work. You need to be in contact with them every 2 or 3 weeks at the minimum, and going over different, just keeping in touch with them, letting them know you're still working on it, and things like that. That way they're in contact with you and you have that rapport going with them. That's very, very, very important to do with your sellers right from the beginning, and that will alleviate a lot of problems down the line. Now, when it comes to actually your exit strategy on properties, that also has a bearing on what goes on. If the property, it makes sense to just buy outright, it's a good deal, the funds are low enough, you have access to it, whatever it may be, then just buy the property in a lot of cases. We're working on a couple deals right now. We're just buying the property straight out. We haven't had them under contract all that long, but the numbers clearly make sense, and so because of that, we're going to go ahead and purchase the property. Now, you may be looking at it and saying, well, it's more of a situation where I can't do that. My spread's not big enough. I don't have the capital to close whatever it is, so I have to do a double closing. Fine. If that's the case and your sellers become uncooperative, there's a few different things that you can do. One, you can obviously record against the property. We had to do that recently. We had a seller that was uncooperative. We recorded against the property an affidavit or a memorandum against the property. What does that do? It stops the property from transferring when a title search is done by a company. Now, obviously, they could deed it over and just ignore it on their own. So if they sold it directly to somebody or transferred it or something like that, nothing you could do there other than sue them after the fact. But if it was a title company or an attorney involved, it would stop that dead in its tracks, obviously, because they would have find that in a title search. In our case there, we actually had a seller that was selling a property to us. We were moving forward with it. We were keeping in contact with them. We were getting information from them. We actually were planning on closing on it quicker. It wasn't a double close situation, but we couldn't get access to the property. It had a gate, and there was a whole bunch of different issues where the sellers were really uncooperative. And then eventually what happened was some real estate agent reached out to them. They didn't tell them about us. They decided to go ahead and list the property with them. They got a better offer because of that through the real estate agent, and then all of a sudden basically said, well, we're not going to sell to you. Doesn't work right that way. So what happened there was because of that, when we recorded against it, and then when they went to try to close that transaction, it just died. We told them that we did it. We tried to push against it. We recorded that affidavit against it. They basically ignored us, and then they tried to close, and then of course the attorney wouldn't close the deal because of it. That led to the second part of it. Well, they figured they would just wait us out. The way our documents are worded, the ones that you receive in our program, it's a protection for the long term because you intend to close on it. So we received correspondence after it ended, and they asked, well, do you have do you have an extension? I said, I don't need an extension. They said, well, do you, the contract ended. It's like, yes, but we've been trying to close on it. You can reach out to our attorney. Here's their information. So they tried to play that game to wait it out and let it expire, but it didn't. We did not remove the memorandum or the affidavit against the property. And so because of that, they still weren't able to go sell to that person after the fact. They still kind of ignored us a little bit. So what did we do? Well, we went out, we sent them a letter. The attorney actually sent them a demand letter at that point, and that's when they actually closed on the property with us, and we moved forward. So you can record the affidavit, and then you can kind of try to follow through with them. Hey, I'm willing to take the next step on this if I need to. I really don't want to. I just want to close on it. I want to do what we agree to, and see if they will agree with that, and if they'll move forward. If not, that may be when you need to get an attorney involved, have them write a letter. And as a last case resort, obviously, they can file a lis pendens against the property, notice of a lawsuit that you're moving forward with a specific performance lawsuit against them. I will say in all the deals that we've ever done, 1,000+ deals that we've done, we have never had to actually go that far in getting to the lawsuit itself thus far. We have had to go as far as filing it a couple times and have the person served, and when they received it, they kind of backtracked immediately and went through with the sale. So generally speaking, though, that's only happened a couple of times. You don't even have to go that far. Normally just recording against it, making some sort of threats against them, and all of that usually works. If that doesn't work, getting the attorney involved, having them send the letter, the demand letter, that usually brings over way more of the majority. And after that, there was only a couple of people left where it actually became a bigger issue. But all of that being said, that doesn't happen all that often. This is the key here in listening to this. This doesn't happen all that often. Will it happen as you do more and more deals? Of course, especially if somebody comes in underneath you and tries to convince a seller to do otherwise. But the biggest key with this is being in contact with your sellers. If you stay in contact with them, if you're regularly in front of them, if you're talking with them, they will still, more times than not, work with you and stay loyal to you. I've had sellers, many of them, over the years that have told us that somebody else came in and offered more on their property, but they already agreed to a contract with us because we're having conversations with them. That in itself makes you start looking at it a little bit more too, right? Should I close on this immediately? Where's my situation? What's going on? But as you're going along and doing that, having that conversation open and honest with them up front, what is it doing? It's now doing the same thing back to us. Here they come after the fact. They come in, they say, hey, I've gotten this agreement, somebody else is interested, but we're already in a working relationship, so I'm going to keep moving forward with you. So if there's one thing that you take out of this, it's to make sure that you stay in contact with your sellers. Regular. Then from there, if it makes sense to close on it, whatever the situation is, figure out what you're going to do. And then from there, obviously, if you're in a double close situation and something fishy starts to happen, that's when you can start looking at recording affidavits, and that's when you can start looking at getting an attorney involved if need be. Some people record affidavits on every property. We don't. It doesn't really seem worth it. We don't run into the issues that often. These things range anywhere from $20 to $50 per property, depending on where you are to record against it. So if you're getting contracts left and right, you're recording, it's going to get very expensive to do that. And it's really not something that has proven worthwhile because, like I said, we've only had a handful of situations like this over the years. So if we talk about, I said most people back down. I mean, maybe a dozen or so, 15 properties over the years where we've actually have to record an affidavit against the property. And like I said, doing that in conjunction with an attorney sending a letter, every case but two has worked where they back down. But all the other deals, just being in contact with the seller and working with them was more than enough. So again, guys, we're talking about this in the group a little bit, so feel free to join the Land Method group if you're not already in it. Reach out to us if you have any questions. And again, our program and things like that, we talk about how to get access to these documents and how to be able to protect yourself and how to stay in contact with sellers and all of that. So if you have any questions on that, reach out as well. So thanks a lot for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Crushing Land.